All right. Hey, everyone. Thanks for tuning into our podcast today. Hope you all had a great Thanksgiving. Um, but today we're kind of going to be talking about JFK, his assassination, the conspiracy theories involved with it, and then why why there's like a lack of conspiracy theories around the other presidential assassinations. But kind of some context, JFK, he was just a really, really liked president. Before this, I talked to my parents just trying to get their understanding of Kennedy, and so I asked them, I was like, "So, how do you kind of feel about him?" And they both just were resoundingly in favor of Kennedy. Were yours similar to that?
Yeah, my family's definitely like conservative, libertarian kind of thing, but
Mm-hmm.
like them along with me, he's definitely someone I'd vote for just because of what he was trying to push for and like kind of just in the time, just like all the civil rights
Mm-hmm.
stuff going on, and he was pushing for that. So I
Yeah,
definitely would.
yeah, and that's good. Like he just kind of had a lot of people in favor for him, which was pretty rare, for presidents. But with JFK, obviously comes his assassination, and with the assassination is all the conspiracy theories that revolve around it. But we're trying to figure out, why there are so many conspiracy theories, and why about JFK in particular. So in doing research, one of the first things we kind of found out was Dallas, Texas, where he was assassinated, is not very pro Kennedy. In fact, they were even called, the headquarters of an anti-Kennedy movement called "Let's." I have written down. It says, "Let's overthrow Kennedy." Like, it's just not a good place for him to be in. Even the head of one of the newspapers there, his name is Ted Dealey. He wrote an article about how he didn't like Kennedy. He published an ad like against Kennedy, and even went to the White House to talk to Kennedy about like how he disagreed with some of his different policies and stuff. Just not a very good place. And then even like Dallas, with all like this kind of negativity towards it, also is different than DC, because DC, like, that's kind of where the president is, like White House, all that stuff, and he's going to be more protected there. But with like Dallas, I mean, he just didn't have like a
Hmm.
lot of people there in
Yeah.
favor for him. Um, it just wasn't like a good place um, to be in. And Kennedy himself actually did express a small desire to go to Dallas prior to this, but it wasn't like he was really, really heavily pushing for it. Um, but yeah, it's just Dallas. It just really isn't that good of a place um, for anyone to be in, and I wonder if he was kind of wary that something might happen. Going to Dallas and just kind of being all that negativity towards him. Um, but that's just kind of, you're speculating at that point. Um, but yeah, Dallas just not a good place overall. It's just like the people in power, like the regional CIA and FBI officers, weren't really in favor of Kennedy. It's just not a lot of good things like for Kennedy when he went to Dallas. But Lee Harvey Oswald, who the Warren Commission and the public is kind of accepted as the killer. There's kind of a lot of sketchy stuff going on with him, isn't
Yeah.
there?
Oh yeah. Yeah. So pretty much, just give it like a background for Lee Harvey Oswald. Like pretty much like from a young age, like I think 15 was the first time he really showed
Mm-hmm.
kind of desires to like he there's there like on the Warren Commission it's reported there's plenty of quotes from him saying from the time I was 15 I wanted to like be an anarchist. I've looked into the Marxist movement. I looked
Yeah.
into the communist movement. I wanted to be a communist, and I think when he was 19, he defected to the Soviet Union. So there's that, and then I think within the few months leading up to
Mm-hmm.
the assassination, he showed a strong desire to defect to Cuba,
Mm-hmm.
and along with that, there's pictures of him coming out of the Soviet Union embassy in
And the Cuban one,
Yeah,
right? Yeah, and the Cuban one too.
in Mexico City. So that leads to one of the big conspiracies that's just kind of questions who else was involved. Like it could could be anybody. Like a lot of people suggest that Fidel might be what might have been a part of it, and the Soviet government, or even both,
Yeah.
could have played a role with whether it was big or small, just being involved.
Yeah,
So-
and like regardless of like even if it's a big or small, like even if they're involved, it's still huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I remember reading that like it was like I think you mentioned like 2 months before he was before the assassination, he was in Mexico City. He went into both the Soviet Union and the Cuban embassy, which apparently he was looking to like move to there,
Yeah.
but like it's just kind of a little fishy because he met this dude. His name was Valery Kostikov. He's in the KGB, and not only is he in the KGB, he's in the third department of the KGB, which is extremely important because the CIA and the FBI have marked the third division of the KGB as one of sabotage and an assassination. And he met with like a leader in that part of the KGB. Lee Harvey Oswald did. So that's like, whoa, like red flag. And it wasn't just us saying this, like the CIA and FBI marked Lee Harvey Oswald to be like under heavy aggressive surveillance beforehand, before the assassination. This was when like 2 months before when he met with Valery Kostikov, and he was supposedly supposed to be under heavy surveillance, but you know quite clearly he wasn't under enough, if under any. A couple of conspiracies stem from that, but it's a kind of a little reaching at straws. But yeah, so with this whole thing of like talking to the guy in the KGB, the Warren Commission looked actually into foreign interference, and they just said there wasn't enough evidence for it, which is a little fishy, but nothing really to like get like a hard conclusions on. But so Warren Commission, while we're on that, once it was released, did you see the thing where like people abroad like really like they didn't like accept it?
They took that there's just multiple like countries just around the world that they all just kind of said that while they didn't
they were like kind of skeptical of it.
They didn't outright deny it, but they all showed like a common just skepticism for it.
I think it was like I wrote it down. Latin America, Greece, Japan, Ghana, Soviet Union, all showed like pretty expressive like skepticism towards the Warren Commission, and even I think it was Ghana even said that there was like a lack of integrity or like trying to hide the facts, something like a really, really bold claim. But yeah, all those countries still were like kind of skeptical of it, but not, I think America even was too, right? Wasn't there like a report or something?
They were kind of in the leading, like right after the assassination, kind of the years after it, there were a bunch of different like Gallup polls that were posted, and one of them stated that before the report was published, only 29% of Americans thought that Oswald acted alone, but after it was released, it rose up to almost 90% of those respondents. So
Jeez.
Initially, most people were pretty convinced that Oswald acted alone, but when the years after that, when more people started looking into it, doing their own investigations, throwing their own theories out, more and more people began to change their minds about it, thinking that, hey, there's got to be a possibility that either... So, yeah, pretty much like two big conspiracy theories came up, and one was what we mentioned before with like foreign interference with the Soviet Union and Cuba. Yeah, but another one that came out was the idea of a second shooter, and basically where this came from was in the video that was published of JFK being shot. Many people were quick to notice that there was this guy that eventually,
with the umbrella.
They eventually they named it like the Umbrella Man theory.
Yeah,
where they basically they're kind of taking into account the number of shots and how fast it went off, and they don't think that it was possible with the weapon Oswald used, is that he could have shot all three, and this guy he just looks really shady, has this umbrella they kind of assumed that umbrella could have been a gun and he could have been a second shooter.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember seeing that. It's kind of like, I don't know if there's like a ton of like super like good evidence for it, but like it's sketchy for sure.
It
it's
definitely
just,
is in that. And what could possibly back that up is there are photos of a bunch of other like white American looking people, like men, all walking out of like like the same Cuban and Soviet Union embassies that Oswald was visiting at the same exact time. So that could possibly.
Oh, I see. So like they all
Yeah.
like met
So
together or something.
there's a possibility that kind of reaches into like that kind of feeds both theories
both
that
theories that
there were multiple people involved, and there could have been two, possibly even more people present there with weapons to kill him.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. I remember even so like that is like fueling conspiracy theories like crazy, but then even I remember reading it was 1967. CBS actually did their own version. Like they tried to recreate the assassination itself, and while they were doing it and reported actually back, like to the people in like who were watching the news, they said that the Warren Commission did a less than adequate job, like recreating things and adjusting for this and that and whatnot. Which, when a news company as big as CBS is kind of taking shots at the Warren Commission, it's just going to fuel more and more conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
And you can kind of chalk it off because CBS did end up agreeing with the Warren Commission in the end, saying that like their conclusions were correct, but the damage had already been done. And so that's why there's so many were coming out. Oh yeah, and then so Johnson he became president. But then after. I can't remember if it was during his presidency or after. Do you remember him saying where he was like, not all of my own beliefs?
Yeah, even he was skeptical of it.
Yeah, even Johnson was still like, there's something else going on.
That kind of goes back into like the point of just, there's all these international, all these countries that were just all throwing their skepticism, and like this Warren Commission, everybody's thinking that they're not giving like the full... They're not giving all the details, and like even to this day, like
they're
Donald Trump,
something.
like they were like 2017, they under his presidency they released a bunch of new information, but he still withheld some.
Yeah.
So it kind of goes to back the whole thought and theory that
there's just something going on.
So there's definitely more that the government's hiding, and they're probably hiding it to save their own image.
Yeah.
Possibly.
And it's just not good when and then like Watergate happening.
Yeah,
it's just people don't trust the government.
So just all the like just growing, just
it's all
just like all the like just the everybody, the government losing the trust of the citizens, just like with all the Korean War, because right at the time of Kennedy's assassination, I think they were getting ready to go into the Vietnam War and just all that, just like the growing mistrust.
Yeah, it was
just plays a big factor in all the conspiracy theories that came out.
Yeah, it's just like overall the whole Kennedy assassination. There's just a lot of sketchy stuff happening and things that shouldn't be happening and are just poorly placed and don't make a lot of sense. But even with all that, so like we have all this stuff talking about JFK, right? Like, we look back, there's Lincoln, McKinley, and Garfield, right?
Yeah.
Those are the other three presidents that have been assassinated. There's just not conspiracy theories about them.
Yeah, you really like when you look at all three of those. Like Lincoln was shot point blank in the head.
Yep.
That was witnessed by everybody in the theater. And then Garfield, he was on the train. He was getting on a train to go on vacation somewhere, and I think he was shot point blank in the back.
Yep.
And then McKinley was shot point blank
in the stomach.
In the stomach in Buffalo, outside of an amphitheater. So
he was leaving a convention or something.
Yeah. So like all these situations, it's with that and the fact that there's just multiple eyewitness accounts that were like present, like within like reaching distance of seeing all three of these assassinations. It's kind of hard to argue that
anything else
Yeah,
happened.
like there's these really like all of these situations, like all of these ways, the three ways that they all died. It's just kind of hard to it's kind of
dispute.
hard. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's really no way to dispute. There's no just room to really kind of theorize anything other. Just there's like you could really only theorize that there could have been like in the case of Lincoln's assassination, there were like in the I don't think they I forgot how long it took them to catch Booth, but I know after the fact they hung a bunch of people that were thought to.
Oh, so thought to be part of the.
So
Yeah.
there's really only room for that, just like people help like being connected with
Yeah.
that. But other than that, there's really no room for
Yeah. It's just
skepticism.
and so like all those eyewitness accounts are huge. Not only because they're eyewitness accounts and people are like swearing under oath that they saw this happen. It's technology.
Yeah.
It's the lack of technology.
Yeah.
Like during all three of those assassinations, we don't have videos on them. We don't have any pictures. We don't have anything. And so all we have to take off and like believe is their eyewitness accounts. And when you go back to the JFK assassination, we have video of him being shot, which you think would kind of like, oh yeah, the Warren Commission is right. Because look, we have video, we can prove it. But it stemmed a lot of theories. I think part of that is also because he was like from a far distance away,
Yeah.
and there were a lot of people that could have like
that the video itself. It's without that video, I honestly doubt that these theories would even really exist because like that video alone is just the reason why they exist because you see it happening, you see possibilities of other shooters, you hear and see everything, and it just without that there really wouldn't be much room to like come up with any ideas of like hey, there could have been a second shooter, like this doesn't make sense, what was going like without this video it's just really
because without it like you just have people saying like what they
because this video pretty much like is just the root cause of all these conspiracies. It's just all this.
I mean, like that you have that going on, and then like
because like if they, I mean, just technology is probably the biggest like player in this whole thing because not only that video they can test these theories like they tested the gunshots. They can use like all the technology that was available then that wasn't available at the time of the other three to like test these theories and see if it was possible for there to be a second shooter. Like but they've done it and they've pretty much like proven that he was probably the only one that was there.
But like in trying to do it. Because for certain things they can't say with absolute certainty, there are going to be conspiracy theories coming for that. But because with like Lincoln, McKinley, Garfield, you just have people saying that, and we've accepted that for so long, you can't really have any other conspiracy theories come from that.
It's like just like the way they died, just like the whole occurrence of everything. Like it's really like you really can't. There's no room to dispute anything. Like it's just rough. I think so. I don't know if you necessarily agree with me on this, but I think kind of a reason there are a lot of conspiracies around Kennedy is because he was so well liked. And I say this because so let's go back to the other three because that's what we're comparing it to: Lincoln, McKinley, Garfield. Lincoln was such a fantastic president, but at the time of his assassination, he wasn't liked to the extent that Kennedy was. Because, yes, he abolished slavery, which is absolutely amazing, but there's still Southern slave owners that are going to be angry against him and going to have gripes with him about that. And so because of that, he doesn't have as high a likability as Kennedy did. And then, you look at McKinley, you look at Garfield, they're their presence, but they don't have that kind of like. They really didn't achieve much, but I mean,
they didn't achieve as much as like Kennedy.
Like in the case of McKinley, the guy that killed him, like in the aftermath when they arrested him and just questioning him, he basically just said he was a anarchist, and I think he didn't like the idea of world leaders. He didn't like the idea of having a president in America. He wanted to, and I think one of like straight from what he said, it was just basically. He did it to kind of push the cause of anarchism. So there's that. But I think like in the cases of like Lincoln and Kennedy, there's just like there's so many parallels in between. It's a president that's like he's making major change in a time where like just like in Lincoln's case, he passed the Emancipation Proclamation. He's freeing these slaves, and like while there's a bunch of people that were for that, they were the Southern slave owners that were they ended up fighting a civil war because of it, or they were fighting a civil war because of it.
Yeah.
And then when you go look at Kennedy, he's a progressive that's pushing
like
for
a peace-minded,
like in the peace. Yeah, he's in like we're like in the middle of like just like racial like changing all the civil rights movement.
He's fighting for racial equality.
He's pushing for all the racial equality, and while most people, even like today, like most people would agree that like he was good for doing that. Like most people would vote for him, but there is still like at the time in the South again. Like in Texas, Georgia, where we are, just like the whole Bible Belt, like it's just there's all these people that just don't want that.
Yeah,
they're still holding on to the idea that they're racially superior and all this stuff, and like
it's just and like Dallas was one of the like places for those people, which just goes back to that Kennedy thing. But it's just looking back, it's those presidents, they were assassinated, point blank. All three of them practically were just point blank. And because they didn't have the extensive technology that we now have, or even back at the time of Kennedy's assassination, only thing we have to go off of is the eyewitness accounts. And because of that, I don't really feel like it's because we only can go off of the eyewitness accounts, there just many conspiracy theories can't stem from that. It's just too tough to. But then you go back to JFK, you look at that, we have videos that stem a bunch of conspiracy theories. We have weird, shady stuff happening with Lee Harvey Oswald, going to embassies, talking to KGB people, and all this stuff that's just seems off and not right. It's
definitely just because like it was like the time they were in, like the Cold War's like in full effect, and there's like just the fact that he was like he was in those embassy buildings just enough to stem like there's definitely, because my personal belief, I think that he was the only one there, that he was the sole shooter. I agree. I don't necessarily agree or disagree with the fact that the Soviet Union or Cuba definitely had any part to play, but I think it's definitely possible because just all like the Bay of Pigs incident that happened a few years before, that could be a reason. That's part of the reason why people think Fidel was either a part of it or orchestrated it, just because they get retaliation for that. It's just
there's just stuff that's shady, doesn't really add up and seems off. Personally, I agree with you, Logan, that I think Oswald was the only shooter. And I think I'm also on the same page with foreign interference. I think there's really shady stuff, but I don't know if it's like I agree and disagree. Like it's just
you can't like where my opinion's kind of torn is just like how, if they were involved at all, how involved were the Soviet Union and Cuba, like how much of a part did they play? Like was it just kind of throwing the idea of assassinating the president, or were they like fully, did they recruit this guy, seeing him trying to get into Cuba, pull him in, say, hey dude, like can you do this for us? And like, but
there's so many different conspiracy theories and ideas can stem from all the JFK stuff. But that's our opinion. That's kind of what we have to say regarding the presidential assassinations, and with a focus on JFK. But we hope you enjoyed it, and we hope you tune in next week.